I mean, seems like both teams have the same kind of problem to complain about.
No
It
kidding.
inexplicable coaching.
Oh, un. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I honestly hadn't really spoken to anyone or had a conversation about the game since it happened.
Yeah,
I haven't talked to anyone. I had my own thoughts. I've talked to myself about it,
sure.
but I haven't really had any kind of like I've read some stuff, but never haven't had any back and forth with anybody except for people outside the city, like at work, going, "Hey, sorry about the loss, guy."
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, whatever. What the fuck do you know about it?
Yeah, yeah, I hear you there for sure. Yeah, obviously wildly disappointing. Um
Oh,
but for me, the thing that just is so inexplicable was just how how we're the best running team in football all year.
didn't we have this discussion before the game? Hey, how can they lose, guys? You asked it. Hey, how could they lose? And we all were like, well, how about doing like they did in 2019 and coming in and completely changing the game plan around and like just doing something completely different? When I saw, I didn't even realize when I saw like 6 rushing attempts outside of the quarterback, I was like, what in the fucking God's name do they do that for in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Why do they try to be cute and outthink themselves? And like,
Well,
I don't know, man.
I mean, I
Was
I
G
mean,
Money with us?
huh?
Was G Money with us?
No, I don't know if he's going to join us or not. Um, if he's I don't know if he's available from Colombia. Um,
Colombia. Wonder what time it is in Colombia.
a couple hours earlier. I don't know.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know. It's just inexplicable. By the way, I'm trying to figure out how
Hmm.
something went wrong
Yeah.
in our picks last week
Hmm.
because you and I we both picked the Ravens, but then we went opposite on the Lions Niners, and neither one of us got a point. So I'm not sure how that happened.
Well, because we both picked the Ravens,
Yep.
I thought we had op. I thought you had picked San Francisco.
Hmm.
I think. No, I thought
Uh,
you picked. Yeah,
I
I
picked the
thought you picked San.
no, I picked the
So,
Lions. You picked San Francisco, and it doesn't
so
matter. Yeah.
I went in and strategically changed my pick because I thought because we both had Baltimore, I thought if I pick the same as you in that game, even if we both lose, even if I lose it, we're both going to lose it, and I would still strategically be ahead of you. So I didn't care who won the game. I was like, I just got to pick the same as Brian now because we both lost this first one. So I went in and I switched it, and I lost both games, but I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, I
yeah.
hope he did
I
too.
did have San Francisco. I did have San Francisco. But I
I was
basically
pissed
just
too. I
picked.
was like,
Yeah, I just picked whoever you didn't pick in that game because I said the same thing.
mm-hmm.
I thought the Lions would keep it close. Um, yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, so like I said, next year when we do this, the rule is, your picks are your
No
picks.
change in picks.
No
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 change.
change in
I'll
picks.
I'll agree
Um,
with that because at half the time it hurts me anyway.
yeah, no change in picks unless no change in picks unless
No
something,
change in picks. That's just unless
well,
unless
I
I
mean,
mean we do it on. How about we should probably do it on like a Wednesday night instead of a Tuesday night,
yeah.
maybe. You know, but
Mhm.
you know,
But yeah, no change in
uh,
picks unless if you find out oh, Mahomes is not going to play this week all of a sudden you find out on Friday. Well, that's different. But
yeah.
barring injury or whatever else, I think you know, no changing picks. So yeah, congratulations. You won the season by two. So good for you. You know, it is what it is. So
who are
yeah.
you? Who are you gonna be? I'm not really pulling for anybody, but I guess we'll go over the pick again. We can still do the pick,
Hmm.
for the Super Bowl at the end here. But
Yeah, well, let's. I mean, since we don't have a lot of games to talk about, obviously we can. we can
There's a
talk.
couple of sports topics though I saw today that we can chop up.
That's good for me. Just a real quick recap. I mean, I thought what was astonishing to me in the Lions Niners game was well, I mean, I think the Lions came out, shocked the Niners by coming out hard
Hmm.
and punched them in the mouth, and then they just, it's like, for a guy who, Dan Gamble, right? Like, for a guy
Yep.
whose whole persona is pushing the envelope and going for it when, even when when the metrics say, the analytics say you shouldn't, he goes for it anyway, and all this other stuff. To like, it was so weird how he kind of was aggressive in the first half, and then remember they did they go for it instead of kicking the field goal at
Well,
the end of the first half?
he's getting torched for that going for it on fourth. I know that he was
Yeah,
getting
and then
kind of
doesn't
lit
get
up
it.
for that.
And then but then when you have a chance to actually, like, put the game, send the game to overtime, um I don't know, then I don't know, and then he didn't.
Hmm.
It was so odd, the way
Yep.
he kind of was aggressive, or what, was aggressive and then wasn't aggressive. You know what I mean? Like, it was just
Yep.
bizarre. Now, granted, I mean, I think, having a kicker that you can't trust doesn't help your cause.
Nope.
Um, but like the timing of his, it was a debacle of coaching. Yeah, I think in his case, but like,
I
look,
uh
they're
I
going to
can't
be.
lie though. When I did see the score at half, I thought this is far from over. In my mind, I was thinking
Hmm,
the way today's NFL works,
mhm.
and I literally blinked and it was tied. I'm not even joking.
That was, it was crazy how fast they came back. We were
I mean, I blinked and they were tied. I was like, wow.
we got in because we were out watching, obviously, the first game, and then we got back to my cousin's place, and we got in. It was 24/7, and we kind of, you packed up a few things, put my hands on a beer,
Hmm.
like, just getting settled in to kind of sit on the couch and watch the second game. And by the time, I did those couple of things, put some, we a couple of people came back to his place. So we had some food, like set up some food and set up, had some drinks, whatever. By the time you got it all set up, turned around, it was like, it's tied.
Yep.
It's tied. I mean, it really
That's
was
exactly
that
right.
fast. I had to go back and, like, rewatch how it happened, because it was so it was shockingly fast. I mean,
Yep.
I think we learned a couple of things from that game. I mean, the Lions are going to be outstanding next year. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
They have one of the best offensive lines in football, and they have an extraordinarily good defensive line. That really, they are hard to run on. Um, but
Uh,
boy, the
uh,
secondary needs help, and I mean, just did not do any favors to that team yet this last weekend.
nope.
Um, and the
They got
Niners
great
are
receivers.
yeah, the
You know,
Niners are exactly who we thought they were.
yep. Yep.
You know, Sh- Shanahan's is an offensive genius. I'm glad he's finally getting a chance to get a shot at a Super Bowl now. He certainly has earned it over the years. He's been a great OC for many years, and been a good head coach for a couple of years.
I'm really glad though that I think San Francisco is the best team of that.
Oh yeah, I
And
agree.
to go against Kansas City, I don't think Detroit really would have stood a chance. I mean, they did, but
Yeah,
I think San Francisco is the best opponent for the Super Bowl for them.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that the Chiefs would have picked apart that secondary all day.
Hmm.
Um, y- you know, uh, it is a funny thing. Did you see? They asked Nick Bosa about a couple of the Chiefs linemen. Asked what he thought of them. You know, so hey, what do you think of these two guys? He says, well, they hold a lot.
They hold a lot.
And I was like, that was one thing I noticed in the Ravens game, was how often, specifically, Jadeveon Clowney was held with no flags. But I mean, again, like, I, I I am always of the. I've said before on the show that I think every game has two or three plays that are kind of 50-50 calls or no calls,
Yep.
and when the NFL tries to influence anything, those calls just happen to go one way, all go one direction,
No
and
question.
and that can be enough to influence a game. But if you play well enough to win, those calls don't matter. And
No doubt.
they only matter when you're not, they only matter when you're playing too close.
Yep.
So, it's that sort of thing. Like for me, the Ravens, it was they didn't play well enough to
Here's
win.
here's the thing, man. And I was thinking about this. If you look back at all their playoff losses, they haven't gotten beat by anybody. They have beat themselves in every damn game, going back to the
Oh,
14-point,
now I'm going to
Colts when we.
disagree. They got beat by the Titans in 2019. They got
I don't
beat.
think so. When you
No,
come out and you
Derrick
change
Henry
your
had
game
like
plan,
Derrick Henry had
we
like
beat
200
ourselves.
yards. Derrick
The
Henry had like
game.
200 yards rushing.
Listen, in that game
They
too, I think if you look back, we had 6 rushing attempts in that
Yeah,
game
but
too,
it does
and we
doesn't
came in
yeah.
as the record-breaking running team. That's
Yes.
beating yourself. When you
No, no,
come in
no.
with that game plan, you
No,
beat yourself.
but the that year the rushing was all done by Lamar, and he could not find any running room.
They
No,
well,
he was that was he went
it
over
was
he went over
it
a
was a
thousand. No, no, no,
three-headed it was a
no, no, no,
three-headed
no. That was
monster,
I disagree.
but
I think that game we
he
got beat
had more intentional runs. Yes, he had more designed runs for
more
sure.
design runs up the middle, and there was no space for him. We
But
did not change. We did
it
not
was the
change our
play
game
option.
plan.
It was the
Play action.
pass play option,
Yeah,
and
we
they
didn't
ran it
completely
beautifully.
see. I disagree. We did not really change our game plan in that one. They might have gone to panic mode and passing a little too soon, but that's only
Way
because
too soon.
we weren't built for comebacks.
You know what?
And
I specifically remember what's his name. I think it was Gus. I think it was his first year. I can't remember who we had in the backfield. But anyway, he had like a 26-yard run in the beginning of the game. Place was going crazy. It was the last time he touched the ball. He went the entire rest of the game, never even touched the ball again. And I was thinking, it's just, I don't know. It felt the same. I felt like, if we came in with, if we just stayed with what we did best and stayed consistent, it would have been a different story.
well,
But you might be right.
yeah, I mean, agreed. Let me see. I just wanted to pull up this game just out of curiosity. Yeah, you are. Lamar had 20 carries in that game.
Yeah.
20 carries for 143. He also threw 59 passes.
Oh my God. What game was that against Tennessee?
That was the Titans game. Yeah, Ryan Tannehill threw 14 passes, but Derrick Henry rushed for 195 yards. That was the thing.
Didn't stop him.
So we couldn't stop him. So it did not matter because our game plan was irrelevant. Yeah, Gus had 3 carries for 20 yards. Oh, sorry. Gus had 6 carries for 22 yards. I'm sorry, 3 carries for 20 yards, and Mark Ingram had 6 carries for 22.
Okay.
There was no running room except for Lamar, and they obviously 9 carries outside Lamar. They abandoned.
I remember Mark Ingram. Yeah, I liked Mark Ingram.
They abandoned it pretty early. But and they threw way too much. But I remember that game, and it was like Derrick Henry was absolutely crushing it, and we couldn't stop him. So they just kept having these grinding drives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just kept having these clock eaters, and so the team started to panic because it was like,
yep,
we got to get on the board here. So what do you anyway? I think though, in the case of in this week, I think it was all game plan because they came out from the get-go. And I mean, we were down 7-0 and they were already it was already drop back passes just like immediately.
Yeah.
And it was sort of inconceivable. It was I mean, again, like when they did that first drive with drop back power, the second drive, and they when they hit Flowers, wide open for the touchdown. It was like, okay, that was fine. That was like no, we want to show you we can come right back and do it to you. We can do that too or whatever. And it was like, all right, now it's 7-7. Everybody can settle down. But we didn't. The Chiefs drove back down and scored, and it was like it was as if the entire offensive game plan then became, we're going to have to outshoot them. And it was like, but no, we don't have to do that. They're up 1 score, and you have to count on your defense to make adjustments. Now again, going back to that Titans game, that was, maybe this was a problem because against the Titans, our defense never could make the adjustment. We never stopped Henry. He just kept running all over us. And so you had to start thinking about the clock because they were like routinely having these, even if they didn't score, having these like, 6-minute drives to kick a field goal, or even if they were punting, it was like they're just grinding the clock. So I do
Mm-hmm.
get that. The Chiefs, it was like, yeah, we didn't stop them at all for 2 straight drives, and then we held them to 3 points for the rest of the game. You know what I mean? Like the
Yep.
defense did their job the second half, but the offense just looked completely lost. Lamar looked lost. The other thing, I don't know if you noticed this, you ought to go back and look. They were so set on this drop back passing. They had Justice Hill back there like the whole time. They didn't even have Gus in the game, and they had Justice Hill back there in like pass protection, and like he missed a bunch of blocks. Like
Mm.
but like looked like he didn't know who he was supposed to get. Like he didn't,
Right.
it's like we don't run that drop back pass enough for him to be down after
Yeah.
down after down. Like he's fine coming in where he chips a guy and then goes
Yeah.
out to into the flat, but to be back there in actual like pass protection,
Yep.
play after play after play, it threw him off. I mean, he had a
Yes.
drop and he didn't look comfortable, and Lamar never looked comfortable. And I'm sorry, I put all of that on Todd Monken. I know if G Money were here, he would put it on Harbaugh, but
Herbs.
I don't. I think that's that's on your offensive coordinator. I guess ultimately that comes down to the head coach, but like your trust in your offensive coordinator has worked out a game plan, and I'm not sure if this was Monken's plan from the get-go or if he panicked because it's his first time in the playoffs and immediately
Yeah.
scrapped everything that he had laid out and went to this like alternative plan. I mean, which seems kind of like maybe a more likely scenario.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking
It
too.
felt a little bit more like oh
Harbaugh
no.
he gives leeway to his coordinators though. I think he won't
Well,
step in ever.
yeah, but
You
I
know,
think that's from his background though. I mean, he's one of those rare
which I
guys who
I don't think that's a I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's
You know.
but he came in as a special teams coordinator. You know what I mean? So like his expertise is in the special teams. So he's going
Stays
to
in his
bring
lane.
in, yeah. So he stays in his lane, and he's going to bring in an OC and a DC that hopefully can handle that side of the ball, or those sides of the ball. So I mean, I don't begrudge him that. A lot of times these things don't work. Brandon Staley, who I've picked on, much maligned Brandon Staley this season. This guy's supposed to be some sort of defensive genius, comes over to San Diego, and every year he's there, the defense gets worse and is one of the worst in the NFL. So it doesn't always work bringing in a guy
Mm-hmm.
who's to be a head coach who has had success at a coordinator position. Um, you know, sometimes they can't manage both sides of the ball. Sometimes they,
Look at
you know,
look at the offensive juggernaut that Kyle Bowler was because of
right.
you know
Because Billick.
Billick.
Well, that's always been my big question about Billick has always been, was Billick an offensive genius, or did he just
Or
benefit
did
from
he have
having
Dante Culpepper and Randy
Dante
Moss?
Culpepper, Randy Moss, and Chris Carter?
Right.
And he had Robert
And
Smith
Robert
running the
Smith.
ball.
And
Yeah.
Robert Smith.
hmm
Yeah, okay. I'll go out there and coach. There's
I
four,
mean,
you know.
does feel like you ought to have a few yards and a couple of points with that squad. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've always been a little bit curious about like, I mean, obviously he knew what he was doing. He knew how to get a lot out of those guys, but also, it's
Sure.
it's pretty nice to be able to work with. You argue
No
with me,
doubt.
but I think Randy Moss is probably the best wide receiver that ever played the game.
Oh, I'm with you.
I don't think
I'm not arguing that.
I don't think the stats bear that
He's
out, but
he's without question the greatest deep threat ever. No doubt about it.
unquestionably. Um, and I mean, yeah, for all the knocks about him taking plays off and everything else, like I don't know if he can produce the way he produced. All I have to say about
Right.
that is who gives a shit.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
that's fine. Take
Sounds
take
good.
take a breather. Um, take a breather.
Take 5.
I mean, to be a guy known for catching touchdowns on a team with a guy whose nickname is who is his name is Chris Carter. All he does is catch touchdowns, and Randy Moss is the guy catching more touchdowns. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. No doubt about it.
And yeah, no, I mean there was nobody that could beat him in a one-on-one situation. It was
Oh
pretty.
hell no.
I
It's
mean,
unbelievable. Unbelievable, that guy.
Yep. Yep. If he could have gotten those couple of years in Oakland back, when I think it was still Oakland then. Well, yeah, it was Oakland then. Those couple of
Mhm.
years that he languished in Oakland, and
Yeah.
had been on a team, that if he had just been on a team,
Yep.
I mean, I'm curious to know what his stats might have ended up. But he languished in the wasteland there for a couple of years, not unlike Devontae Adams is these days. Um,
Yes. Yes.
so so let's see. So just to wrap up the Ravens season, we lost our DC.
Yep.
Was the one coordinator I didn't want to lose. I mean, good for him. Congratulations. Seattle is a great opportunity.
Uh-huh.
I am shocked. I really thought they were going to go Vrabel. Vrabel felt like a perfect fit there. Um,
Well, is Vrabel, maybe he'll end up back with his alma mater, and they'll both coach into the sunset together in Washington.
his
Him
alma
and him and
mater
Belichick.
in no Dan Quinn.
Didn't they come from the same tree, Belichick and Vrabel?
Yeah,
Or did
Vrabel
Vrabel just play for him?
played for him, and then I think got his coaching start under him. But
Yeah.
but Belichick is I don't know where he is. He's not been hired. Dan Quinn just got hired today as the Commanders' head coach.
Oh, no kidding. Nice, good
Yeah,
for him.
what Belichick didn't want to go to Washington.
No,
That's
of
too
course
much
not.
drama, too much headache, too many needs to fix that team.
Well,
Um,
they have new ownership. They're going to get a new stadium. There's a lot of enticing things going
yes,
on there
there
now.
are enticing things there, especially if you're looking for your first opportunity and you're hungry.
Mm.
If you're Belichick, where again, I don't know this guy's
If
motivations. I mean, he's the most boring ass man, Um,
no question, no
but
question about
so you
that.
have no idea what he's thinking. The only thing I can every time I see him or hear him talk, the only thing I think he's thinking about is how much he hates everybody.
Yeah,
So,
I
um,
mean, I was never so. I mean, I had never seen his interviews before, and then I watched him interview with the press like after games, and I'm like, he's the biggest dick like I've ever heard in my life in
yeah,
an interview. Like he's like, no, that's just on to Cincinnati.
yeah,
I don't know. It's just next week, Cincinnati. I don't care. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
dude, just stop being an asshole. It's like God. And then I would hear like other stories about him being such a douchebag, just to general people. And
Yep,
so I'm
yep,
not a big fan of Belichick at all.
yeah. He, yeah, yeah. I mean, I really love the idea that he's sort of suggesting that he's going to go in TV because I can't wait.
Oh, who the
Can't,
hell would hire that guy?
can't
Watch him
wait.
come out. The funniest thing is he'll come out with a completely different personality. All of a sudden, he'll be like this charming, like talkative dude. It's like, where was this guy at?
Hard to
Oh,
imagine.
friggin'
It's
life.
it's
Right.
hard to imagine. So, I mean, it really feels to me like it's just going to be constantly like, you look into the history of the 40, you look into the history of the 46 defense, you could see how that
There,
was first brought into play. And it's third
there.
down, Bill. We're going to go. Let's see what Mahomes has up his sleeves for
He
this.
won't. He won't say anything till the end of the broadcast. Be like, next week, I'm Cincinnati.
It would be, you know what? It'll be like it might actually finally get the stink of Dennis Miller off of football.
Oh,
The worst, absolute worst decision in broadcasting that has perhaps ever been made.
like,
Like,
could you imagine being at the meeting where someone's going to recommend, hey guys, we're looking for some new commentators, and we got Al Michaels and we got all these retired football players and everything. What about Dennis Miller?
what about the biggest dickhead comedian that's out there right now? Yeah, I mean, yeah, unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Um, I mean,
Dennis Miller.
just I mean, who was he? Hold on, I want to know who it was. Who was on the Dennis Miller Monday Night Football? Oh, you know who was worse?
Um,
Was when they had Rush Limbaugh do a couple.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah,
Was
they
it
had
just like a game or two?
no, they kind of. I think they were bringing him. Oh yeah, it was Al Michaels and Dan Fouts. Dan Fouts was okay.
I don't mind Dan Phelps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was all right. Dan Fouts struck me as the kind of guy. Well, okay, so real quick story about Dan Fouts. So, you know, as a Baltimore guy, this is a thing that most people from Baltimore have completely memory hold. But
hmm
Johnny Unitas did not end his career as a Baltimore Colt.
San Diego Charger, right?
San Diego Charger, where he went out there to basically mentor a young rookie named Dan Fouts.
hmm
And the funniest thing, I remember hearing a story. One of the guys out there was like, yeah, so Johnny U, he's from a different era. He comes out, he's straight laced. He's got the high and tight haircut, and all
yeah.
that stuff, And he comes out there, he's like, and Dan Fouts is like long haired and growing a big beard and all this stuff. And the guys are all smoking weed and all this stuff. And he's like, and Unitas and I just remember the guy told the story. He's just like, and he's like, and Unitas just didn't really fit in. I was like, yeah,
Just
that
didn't really fit in.
it's hanging out smoking pot with a cop is what that is. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, no. And I don't mean today. I mean, 30 years ago, before there
Right.
was any whiff of that stuff illegal. Not a thing you want to do.
Right.
But yeah, I always liked Fouts to some degree calling games because he always brought a degree of insight that I do like when quarterbacks bring
I
that insight.
I thought he was exceptionally good thinking back, and
He was
I
good.
I actually don't look at him as a former player doing it like I do some of the other guys. I looked at him as a legitimate play guy.
Yeah,
He was
the only
he was
thing I was going
before
to
my
say,
time,
yeah.
so I don't remember him playing, but
Well, the thing about Fouts was, by my estimation, and I might be, I'm probably completely off base, but Dan Fouts always seemed to me about one and a half to two sheets into the wind. Every time he did Monday Night Football, he seemed like he was well on his way by the time the game started. Um,
I
he just
definitely got that from a couple of the what's his face with the who did the one with who was with Madden.
Al
Um,
Michaels. Oh,
no, the
oh,
other guy,
oh, Pat Summerall. Pat
Pat
Summerall.
Summerall.
Pat Summerall wasn't sober for a single day in the last 60 days. He was 60 years he was alive. He didn't spend a sober day for the last 60 years of his life. Oh, he was always and
He
I
was lit.
and Al Michaels strikes me a little bit that way about half the time. Seems like he's having a real good time. Um, so yeah, but I mean, Dennis Miller, God, was not. He just wasn't even funny. That was the worst part. Hey, Chachi, run the ball. What are you doing, man? He's not even funny. I mean, he was he
No.
was he was decent on Weekend Update because he didn't have to tell jokes. He just had to kind of deliver the occasional little he could do his little head bob after he tells. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey everybody, I said a funny thing. Look, and
Yeah.
and what drove me nuts about him was like he used a ninth grade vocabulary, and he thought somehow that made him smart, like seemed like he was a real smart guy. And I was like, dude, you're not saying anything that people don't
He
understand.
had
You're saying
he,
things that people think are annoying.
he had a very unique approach to his comedy for sure. And he was funny in the right kind of setting. And you're right, they had to give him like the Weekend Update. I thought some of those were good, but
Well,
you know,
I could tell
if
you
you give him, when
yeah,
you just put him in like a setting like a Monday Night Football where he's got to wing it almost, and he doesn't have the great writing or whatever,
right. That's
you know,
exactly. Yeah.
he
Well,
you
see,
know he
he
blunders.
floundered.
Yep.
He the thing with him too, again, like his brand of humor only works for people, would only work on people who who read New Yorker comics and thinks that makes them both sophisticated and very witty.
hmm
Um, and it's like, no, dude, like, I mean, like the thing about those things is the people that really, really, really love them because they think they're the only ones that get them, and that makes
Right.
them more clever than everybody else. When the reality is, no, people get it. People get it, and they're just not funny. They're they're sometimes they're like often just like condescending.
Hmm.
And so it's like, yeah, not, it's not that you're so clever. It's that you are a condescending, piece of shit. So that's all. Oh, sorry. I misspoke. Rush Limbaugh was on ESPN for he did
Ah.
on Sunday night count or Sunday NFL countdown.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I
yeah,
love
yeah,
me some
yeah.
Rush.
Um, and I'm trying to remember. I know he got fired because he made some sort of racist comment about Donovan McNabb. Um,
Oh, did he? I'd
well, I
love to
mean,
hear it.
racist gonna racist. I mean, you can't help it.
I
Um,
love Rush Limbaugh, man. He
that
is. He. I used to listen to him every day. My grandfather got me into listening to him, and I
yeah,
just, I
that's
like, I really love the guy. I think he actually, when I started listening to that radio, his radios, when I made the flip,
well,
he's one of the people that got me to
yeah.
flip.
I mean, because he was very good at being an entertainer and being a bombast, but it's a whole lot harder when you try to take anything that he said and and then like hold it up to any scrutiny and you go, oh yeah, none of that is true. I really am disappointed to hear you say that because he is I no I mean uh, I,
I
I can
really
have
like the guy.
I can have political disagreements with a number of people, but I found him to be a really one of the most loathsome, despicable human beings that has ever walked this earth. He is I, like I don't believe in hell. I don't believe there is a hell, but I wish there was a hell just so that
Just for him.
he and Henry Kissinger and a few others, Madeleine Albright can sit down there and just you know burn, 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 burn.
I
Um,
mean, I just remember growing up, he was one of the first voices on radio because my grandfather would listen to his radio in the kitchen. I would just remember listening to him growing up and just, I don't know,
yeah,
seems like a guy makes sense.
I mean, anybody can make sense if you listen to him. I mean, that's their job, is to try and sound like they know what they're talking about. But he was just a loathsome piece of shit. I'm sorry. He
Why
is.
would you think that?
I mean,
Like,
the
what did he
way.
do that you thought that?
Well, I'll give you just one thing that I think is probably the maybe the most loathsome thing that I think he did.
Okay.
Um, he used to do he would read a list of gay men who died as an AIDS update. So in order to make fun of the people who died of AIDS, while he was railing against, supporting basically the Reagan administration, and then trying to complain if any administration tried to do anything like learn what the disease was or how it was transmitted or do any sort of public health, any sort of public health
Hmm.
action to curb the death of American citizens from this disease that nobody understood or knew what it was or anything else. And so yeah, so he would do his AIDS update and he would just sort of make fun of all the gay men that died, read off their names. So that, and honestly, then his listeners, monsters that they were, would then like contact the families and mock them because they sort of got the idea that that's kind of what Rush wants. He wants you to go and make fun of them and tease their families and all this other stuff. So yeah, he was a monster. Um, just a and just an absolute ghoul. Um, he like anybody. I'm sorry, anybody who has such wanton disregard for people dying of a disease is I'm just a despicable person.
I mean, I've
Um,
never heard of that. I never heard that.
yeah,
Um,
you can look that up.
I mean,
You
I'm
he
sure it was in the early '80s where there was a lot of confusion about AIDS
Yes,
and
when people when it was a real public health crisis because nobody knew what the hell it was, and the
and
Reagan
they thought it
administration
was a they thought it
and
was a
the
gay disease.
and the Reagan administration refused to even assign $1 to look into it. In fact, I mean, I remember one of the things that really, one of the things that really, really turned me from where I thought Ronald Reagan was a bad president to seeing Ronald Reagan as an evil president
Hmm.
was when I found these clips from the White House press room, where this one reporter, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was like a conservative. He was a reporter for a conservative newspaper. He was not like a liberal or anything like that. But he said, he would like go into the press room and he started like digging at this story. He's like, hey, so at the time it was like, hey, so like it seems that like a couple, dozen, 50, 100 people have died from some sort of gay men have all died from this unknown disease.
Right.
Is the White House concerned about this? Are they looking into it? And
Of course not.
the press secretary was like, "Why, Larry? What's the matter? Are you worried you have it?" Like that was the
Right.
response. That was the official response.
That was
from
the
White House.
response of everybody. Like everyone
No,
was kind of like, because they thought it was a gay disease, and back then it was like
yeah,
gay people were kind of treated differently.
but don't you see how that's like
Now,
insane,
yeah,
like
looking back,
insane? And but that comes from the top. You could change that from the top. They wouldn't even, and Nancy and Ron wouldn't even acknowledge when one of their closest friends in Rock Hudson got AIDS and died. Like they wouldn't even talk about it.
I remember.
They wouldn't deal with AIDS. They didn't deal with AIDS.
He was a big one. He was like the first big celebrity.
They didn't deal with it, which I'm sorry, honestly, considering that Nancy Reagan was the throat goat and Ron was a himbo. I mean, they've got a lot of nerve. Nancy Reagan was well known to be the throat goat in Hollywood. And so, I mean, she had more semen in her than the U.S. Navy, and so you've got this like. You've got these two people who are pretending to be these like moral crusaders whose own lives do not reflect that like whatsoever. And so the hypocrisy of it is just it's stunning. And then one of their close friends dies. They still don't give a shit until when they finally decided to put some money into it. When a straight white kid, Ryan White.
That's right.
Got it from
Michael Jackson's friend.
He got it from a blood transfusion. So then finally they were like, oh, well, this kid, see, now we should look into it because this kid's innocent.
It wasn't, hold on. Don't play the race card. There's a lot of white gay people dying too. It was that point where they knew it wasn't just a gay disease.
But it was doctors were already saying it wasn't a gay disease. But like, I mean, so like the medical institute, even C. Everett Koop who was not good as Surgeon General. Even C. Everett Koop tried to take action on this and was stopped by the administration. So like,
I know
they acted.
It was terrible. It was terrible. There's no question.
And Rush Limbaugh is on his show reading out the names of people who died for a laugh.
Well,
no,
I didn't see the show.
Go ahead.
I don't know if it was for a laugh. I'm not justifying it.
It was for a laugh.
I was just saying.
It was his weekly. It was his weekly AIDS report. He did it weekly. He did a weekly AIDS report where he read off the names of everybody who died as a like saying basically they all deserved it and making it a mockery.
Well, so you can't defend it, but it was a different time. Rush Limbaugh would have never done that show in 90, 2000, 2010.
He did it about Sandra Fluke when a Georgetown law student testified before Congress about wanting to have access to birth control with her health insurance, and her employer was trying to deny it on religious grounds. And she was saying, you shouldn't be able to deny my health care based on religious grounds. The insurance policy offers birth control as part of my health care, but my employer is specifically blocking me from having it. Why does my employer get to determine whether or not I am allowed to access this portion of care that I'm supposed to get? Which is a extremely legitimate question. And what did Limbaugh do? He spent a year mocking her as a whore, calling her specifically a whore. That like, why should I, saying this, he said, why should I have to pay for some whore's birth control? Now, this wasn't about him having to pay for some whore's birth control. This was a law student who wanted to be able to control whether or not she got pregnant. And frankly, people take birth control for all kinds of reasons, but the most important reason is none of your goddamn business. It's not anybody's business if you take birth control. And Limbaugh spent a year making fun of this woman. I remember hearing some of the things he said about her and going like, And at the time, my political compass was not anywhere near pointed towards morality like it is today. And whereas it wasn't. I wasn't nearly the humanist that I am these days.
As
And
you vote Democrat.
I don't vote Democrat. I mean,
Oh.
occasionally I do if I think it's a harm reduction.
That's right.
But it depends. It depends on whether or not I think the election is whether or not there's a valid case to be made for harm reduction. I also, and yes, I mean, I'm sorry, like, yes, it is the more moral party. I mean, it's marginal, but by and large, it has been the more moral party. I mean, unless your morals are limited only by what you take from some people's interpretation of the Bible, then yeah, I mean, but I don't take my morality from the Bible. I don't trust a book that I sent you, Psalm 137.
I've been watching a lot of the Bible podcasts lately.
Yeah,
I've been learning a lot.
Have you? Did you? I sent you Psalm 137. It's one of my favorites. Did you read that? It's a good one. It's short, short Psalm. Yeah, my favorite part is happy is he who bashes the skulls of the infants upon the rocks. That's my favorite. Is like that. God wants you to smash infants' heads on stones. It's cool. So and like I've had this argument with you before where you say, oh, but I only care about the New Testament. That's the one that I care about. And I've really come to the conclusion that, the based on Christian interpretation today, seems to me that the God of the Old Testament, who was the one that promoted genocide and who gave rules about exactly how to enslave people, and exactly, like,
I think you misinterpret a lot of the Bible.
I don't misinterpret it. And gave all these, I mean, I don't know how you misinterpret when God says, go to Amalek and do not let and slaughter every man, woman, child, every suckling, every infant, every woman with child. Do not even spare the cows or the oxen or the sheep or the camels or whatever. When I'm not sure how you misinterpret that. God saying go genocide these people. And so, fine, that seems all very cruel. But you know what? There's no hell in the Old Testament. Hell doesn't exist. Hell gets invented in through the New Testament. So it seems to me the God of the New Testament is even more violent, more cruel, more horrible, because the God of the New Testament would create an infinite punishment for finite crimes. It's a disproportionate response. If you've committed a sin and die with the stain of that sin on your soul, you burn in hell for all of eternity.
You got to accept Jesus as your savior. It's that simple.
It's not that simple, my friend. You obviously haven't spent enough time reading the Bible. That is a thing you have to do. You also can't die with the stain of sin on your soul. So, you.
But that doesn't mean you can't commit sin. That means you have to, before you die, accept Jesus as your savior to be forgiven for your sins.
It's not like a magic seance where you just say magic words and a magic thing happens. You also then have to, like, as Jesus said, go and sin no more. Like, that's what he said when he healed people.
That's impossible.
Go and sin no more.
That is impossible.
Of course it's impossible, which is why you're supposed to ask for forgiveness whenever you do. So so you don't die with the stain of sin upon your heart. As Jesus himself said, many of you will go out and will heal people in my name, will cast out demons in my name, will do wondrous things in my name. And when you die and you come to the kingdom, I will say, depart from me.
I do not know you.
I do not know you. So, because, and with the implication being that you died with the stain of sin. You did not know me. Except you were able to do all this magic in his name. That's pretty neat. Anyway.
It's not about your deeds on earth. It's about your relationship with Jesus.
There's nothing in the Bible about a personal relationship.
Absolutely.
That's a modern invention. The idea of the personal relationship with Jesus. Nobody thought of that. Nobody even thought of such an idea until like the 1800s. So for 1800 years,
I'm learning right now.
Yep. Well, you should learn some actual history and go back beyond.
I am learning
200 years ago. But.
All right, so here another sports topic I had tonight.
Welcome to USVN, Unbalanced Sports Views Network.
This is gonna really get you going. Okay, this is one you're gonna love. So, admittingly, I I told you, I think I've told you and G Money both this. Since, I don't know, freaking elementary school, I had stopped watching wrestling. Okay. WWE, WWF. I stopped watching it.
Are you bringing me Vince
About
McMahon?
a, oh yeah. So about a year ago, I think it was about a year ago, he got in trouble and he stepped down as the CEO of his
Well,
organization.
he merged the company with UFC.
Yes,
So
under it's called what's it called, the title, the owning, the parent company. I was just listening to Dana White in an interview. It's called not Atlas. It's something. It
it's
begins with an
called
A, I think. Um,
Endeavor. No,
um,
TKO. TKO.
TKO. Okay, TKO. All right. So this is the interesting thing. So TKO owns both those companies. So Vince had to step down as CEO of his company because he got in trouble. I thought that was he got in trouble. He stepped down. I thought that was the end of it, right? So I never paid attention to any of it. I literally like see headlines. He steps down. I was like, I don't give a fuck. So then this latest thing happens, and it's like, and now he's got to step down again. I'm like, wait a second, is this the same thing or are these
Yeah,
different
no,
events?
he was
So then,
the head of
yeah,
he was on the board at TKO. Yeah.
yeah. So I look into it a little bit, and what the guy did, which was genius on his part at first, he got in trouble the first time. He steps down, but he doesn't sell any of his stock, and he remains the chairman of the board. So he's just not the CEO, but he still has everything else. And now he's got to step down as chairman of the board, and yada yada yada. So then I start looking into like all the stuff that he's accused of,
Pretty
and
bad.
my gravy, man, this guy makes Jeffrey Epstein look like,
Really
you know,
bad.
it's just
Well, they have a lot in common.
grotesque.
They both sex traffickers, both extremely close friends with Donald Trump. Um,
No, Bill Clinton.
yeah, well, him too. I mean, hey, look, I mean, you got throw him in jail too. I'm all for it. But when they released the call logs, I mean, you saw that Donald Trump was like the second most frequent caller on Epstein's phone list, right? It
When
was
they when
Alan
they
Dershowitz and then Trump.
Trump was vindicated in all of the testimony. They were asking and they were prodding with every single witness. They were like, down. They were like, yeah, he may have contacted him, but it was like there was zero. It wasn't like Bill Clinton. Donald Trump wasn't banging young chicks. Donald Trump was banging women left and right. There's other weirdos, which is just Prince William and Bill Clinton.
No, Andrew.
Oh, Prince Andrew, you're right. Prince Andrew, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, you say
And
that, but
but
I
this
mean,
guy Vince,
yeah, go
go back
ahead.
to Vince. Go
Yeah.
back to Vince. Um, like this is really um like I'm just trying to wrap my brain around this, what the stories are in this lawsuit. Um, there's all these people involved, and it blows my mind. It blows my mind. And I'm listening to it roll out. And at first I'm listening, I'm going, okay, because I didn't know anything about it. So I'm listening, I'm thinking, did they is this like the Me Too garbage where like the guy's a sleazeball, he goosed someone, and now all of a sudden it's sexual assault and rape? Or is this guy really like Jeffrey Epsteining people? And and he was more than Epsteining people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking about like physical abuse, like battery, and I mean, he's got to go to. You would think he's got to be indicted.
It's yeah, not a he's a he's a bad guy. Um, we'll see. Uh, we'll see what comes of it. The thing is, yeah, I mean, people like this, they you've got this kind of money, you don't generally face a lot of actual real consequences because that's not what the system is there for. It's not meant to punish guys like him. We'll see. He might get a nice uh, club fed kind of a jail term. Who knows?
Not
Um,
anymore. Not anymore. Not with Weinstein. Not since all this stuff came out. Weinstein's in a state prison. Um, Epstein was in the MDC. these aren't cushy places, man. They're putting these guys away. I wouldn't be
Well,
surprised if he gets indicted.
maybe. Let me see. Hold on a second. I want to say here. You know, that's his name. You know, what's his name? You know, Samuel Curtis Johnson was another one of these guys. You probably don't know him as Samuel Curtis Johnson. He's
I don't.
another billionaire. You've probably heard of his company though, SC Johnson. SC Johnson, a
Mm-hmm,
family
mm-hmm,
company, a
mm-hmm.
company that invented like Saran wrap and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was it him or
Um,
his parents that
well,
invented that company?
his father did. He's the scion, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he he was molesting his stepdaughter over and over and over between 6th and 7th grade. So he just kept repeatedly molesting his, 6th grade is what, 11 years old, 12 years old.
Yep.
And he would, whatever. So yeah, he ultimately um, he ultimately had he resigned. He got to keep his money, but he did get charged, or um, he did get charged, but I think his time, he was facing up to 40 years, but I think he got a little slap on the wrist, 6 months, maybe 2 years, something like that. But he's not allowed to he's not allowed to work at the company anymore, or have any contact with the stepdaughter. But he did get
Huh.
to keep, but he got to keep all his money, and the company's still plugging along just fine.
So
I'm always kind of that's my big thing, is I'm always like, when a company demonstrates that they can't be responsible um, through the actions of either the company itself or through the people who are making those choices for the company and who use the power obtained through the company for nefarious means, that the company should no longer exist. It's one of the great travesties of our time is that IBM continues to exist. It should never have been allowed to exist beyond 1946. I mean, it just shouldn't have. I mean, as soon as it became known that IBM was actively like installing the computers, replacing parts, and everything else, creating the punch cards, manually creating the punch cards, so that Hitler could conduct the Holocaust more efficiently, using the IBM computers that they had to actively maintain in order to make the system run well. Sorry, IBM should no longer be allowed to exist. You did the Holocaust. You made the Holocaust worse by like sending representatives in to service the machines, to make new punch cards for them, punch cards that would allow the computer to run to more efficiently process people that were being sent to the ovens, that were more efficiently sending people into to work work the salt mines as slaves, to labor as slaves, and to be sent to the gas chambers. I'm sorry, IBM should have ceased to be. Hugo Boss, you made Nazi uniforms. You continued to remain solidly on the Nazi side to the very end. You use slave labor in order to do it. You use
mhm.
slave labor, to get cheap material and everything else. And you didn't only make Nazi uniforms. You made Nazi uniforms and tried to carve out a high-end brand at the same time that you could sell all over Europe.
I love it. I love that. Great brand. One of my favorites.
Shouldn't be allowed to exist any longer. Should have, as soon as it was like, wait, I'm sorry,
Well, I mean, I think the people behind that don't exist. Getting rid
no,
of the
no,
brand ain't gonna do nothing.
of course they don't, because of time. But I'm sorry, like when you're an active participant in, as far as I'm concerned, when you are aware of and
Mm-hmm.
utilizing slave labor in order to produce your goods, slaves who are being sent to their death, and you are relying on that system in order to increase your profitability and making that conscious choice, you no longer get to be a company anymore. You are burned to the ground, and the earth should be salted behind you. I'm sorry,
Burned to the ground.
100%. There should be no bear. There's a lot of companies that should not exist, as a
Well,
result,
according
just
to
of,
that logic, absolutely.
well,
I mean,
It's
I
true.
guess
I'm sorry.
NASA should too, right?
Well, NASA can exist. It shouldn't have been run by Werner von Braun. It shouldn't have been run by a Nazi. Like 100%. No, shouldn't have had a Nazi in
100%.
charge. I mean, no. I mean, I think again in a just world, once it became, I mean, and I guess honestly, one could argue it was fine for Werner von Braun to run NASA there for a bit because
Mhm.
it wasn't known that he was a war criminal at first, except that we know that the government knew that he was, and
The
they put him
government
in that
definitely knew.
position.
Yeah,
Yes, and
no
so
doubt.
it's the same as when we decided to put together a West German government. Who do we put in charge of West Germany? Oh, former Nazis. Who did we handpick to be in charge of, we, the United States, handpick to be in charge of the West German version of the CIA, like their intelligence apparatus? The former
Nazis.
Nazi in charge of intelligence gathering for the Nazis. That's who we put in charge. Who do we put in charge of NATO? Nazi, former Nazi. That's those are the decisions the United States made. We put a Nazi in charge of NATO, put a Nazi in charge of German intelligence. We put a Nazi in charge of NASA.
Fucking
We
DEI, man.
we
DEI
fired
out of control.
fired American workers, fired American workers from companies that I don't really particularly appreciate, but like from military industrial complex jobs, and replace them with literal Nazis. I mean, like that, we had a whole program in place to remove America, to lay Americans off and replace them with Nazis. Um, that's just Operation Paperclip, baby.
I
Um,
remember that. Yes, I saw that
yeah.
recently, actually. Isn't that
Anyway,
where Hitler went to Argentina
yeah. I
in
mean,
Operation Paperclip?
they say
I
that.
think
I
there's a
don't.
lot of evidence pointing to that
I'm
from
not.
what
I'm
I've
not sure, but
seen. And I think
um,
they came out and said that the skull that they found was proven to be not his through DNA testing and so forth. So they
well,
had like a skull fragment, which is really kind of their I guess proof that it was him. And after DNA testing years and years later, it was proven it wasn't him. I don't know if that's bullshit, but from what the documentaries I've seen, I just in my gut, if I had to guess, I would say he got out and
I
went to
mean,
Argentina.
I don't know. I don't know. I really couldn't say. Um, I mean, I don't know. All I know is that the other thing that should be noted is that it wasn't just Nazis that we did this for. We also did it for Unit 731 in Japan, who was arguably worse than Nazis. That was essentially Unit 731 was essentially their, essentially might as well just be called their war crimes unit. Um,
Gotcha.
they were the ones that engaged in human experimentation with biological weapons.
They were
With
the Japanese. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, the Japanese. Shinzo Abe was his grandfather was a member of Unit 731, the former Prime Minister of Japan.
Oh,
Again,
okay.
like his grandfather, was part of this monstrosity group, and committed some of the worst atrocities of the war. Um, and we not only did we cover it up, the United States not only covered it up. Douglas MacArthur was sent in to cover it up. We paid them all off. We gave them the equivalent of like 300 grand today. These guys from Unit 731 to just shut their mouth and go back about their business, to
Damn.
cover up their war crimes. So like, we put them back in positions of power after the war.
Mm.
That is, so so by the way, this is why I get so like bent out of shape when you're always like, this is the greatest country ever. I'm like,
It is.
I'm like, I'm like, yeah, man, it's like
It's
when people,
flawed.
these are not flaws. This is the part of the system that we like. We don't like to talk. Well, it is.
Like,
We don't like to talk. We don't like to talk about it. But all of these war criminals were, they were a hedge against any leftward movement in our politics. So we bring in Nazis to stop any shift to the left.
hey,
Um,
if that's what they're gonna do, bring them on in. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Get these lefties out of here.
God forbid we have strong unions, because that's what
I like
leftism
strong
is.
unions.
That's
I like strong unions.
you say
I
that, but
do.
you don't know what unions are. You
Old
just
school unions, the way they used to be, the
yeah,
way the unions used to be.
militant. Yes, militant unions. Militant unions. Hmm.
Just working man, giving the working man a fighting chance.
I mean,
Giving him
that's a real
solid pay.
That's
You know,
a
there. So
romantic
where
idea.
I see the union as being a great force is when you look at the up at like for example, I was reading the other day about the longshoremen union up in New York, big union.
Hmm.
Guys up there, they start young, 30 years in, they're making $400,000 a year, pushing a freaking forklift. Guaranteed benefits. They know they're not going to get canned if they call out of work. They can't get canned for dumb nonsense, and it's job security. So in that realm, to give a working man, a stiff blue collar guy, the ability to make top 5% money in this country, that's the power of the unions, I think. But in it's been perverted, and there's a lot of downside of the unions as well. But I think that's why
when you say
they have
perverted, what do you mean by that?
So, for example, if you're on a union job and the light bulb's broken or there's a sign crooked, you got to go fix it. I can't do it. Got to get a union guy out here. That union guy has got to be able to do this, do that. There's a union guy for this. There's a union guy for that. You can't do this. You can't do that. So it becomes, a little, you know, it you can't get out of its own way in some respects. Not all, but that's just one little example. But there's other examples as well.
Because you think that, and again, we could argue about how ticky-tack, it doesn't matter. But you think it's perfectly okay for people to be told by their bosses to do a job that is not in their contract to do. I don't care if that job is changing a light bulb.
Right.
But if your contract is, these are the things that you're responsible for. This is the stuff that you have. So this is the stuff that you have a contract for.
Right.
Therefore, if you act in any way outside of that contract and you get injured, you're on your own.
Correct.
So you might say, well, it's just going up a ladder and changing a light bulb.
Right.
But if I'm a union guy and I go, it's not my contract to change those light bulbs. There's another guy that's got that in his contract. If I go up that ladder and some weird fluke thing happens and I fall off the ladder and shatter my leg, I'm not covered.
There he is.
Yeah, whatever.
Keep draining. My battery keeps getting drained here.
Anyway, no, I mean, I think you misunderstand what the unions are for, because they've been defanged. But like,
I agree with you. What you're saying. Yeah,
but yeah, but that's the thing. You can't be both pro business and pro union. They are on opposite sides. You can't be pro worker and pro union. They're on opposite sides. Like,
I doubt that.
They are on opposite sides.
Unions are the working man. They're for the working man.
Unions
are for the working man. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I did. Of course,
unions are for the worker.
But I said you can't be pro business and pro worker. You can't. The interests are different. They're opposite. So when people talk about how I'm pro business, they are telling you they are anti-worker. They are. That is by definition.
I know that I know that if you're looking at it that way, they're definitely going to intersect, and it definitely contradicts each other, right?
Correct. And
but
it's like I'm really I'm cautiously optimistic about Sean Fain, in charge of the UAW. He really he seems to actually be, the first time in a long time, a guy who understands what the union is, what it's for, where it came from, the whole point. And like he said, the UAW contracts that they just got at the big three, he negotiated them to expire May 1st, 2028. That's International Labor Day, And he said, he's already right now calling for a general strike, like a global general strike for May 1st for all workers. He wants to make the union once again remember its international calling, that unions are supposed to be internationalist. They're not supposed to be nationalist. That we got into a lot of this mess because people stopped thinking about workers as a class and instead started putting national interests above all that. Whereas if workers had all looked out for each other, we wouldn't have had the globalization that we've had, because there would have been no incentive to go across the world. We could have fought back against the primarily Republicans deregulating things so that companies could just leave and be incentivized to open up factories everywhere else in the world except for here. Although for the first time, I don't know if you noticed this, but
I don't think they raised the taxes and caused that.
you say that about taxes. That's not the issue. The it's not the issue. For the first time, did you know for the first time in like 20 years, this past year, we saw growth in manufacturing in the United States. It's the first time in like 2 decades that the manufacturing sector actually grew in the United States.
Yeah, I think it started to grow.
For all of Trump's talk about bringing jobs back and everything else, manufacturing sector did not grow.
It was, but then the pandemic ended.
No, it didn't grow. It never.
It did. It was. It started to. Yeah, there was definitely momentum there. Definitely, I remember that 2016 was definitely momentum there. In fact, lots of companies, because of tax incentives that were being kicked around, were pledging to move operations work to the United States.
Sure, they can pledge. They can pledge. They pledged. They pledged a bunch of things when they were
in the works. Very focused. And then, but before that, the Obama administration basically came out and said, manufacturing's never going back. Let's stop even looking at it.
That is true. They did. Yep. No, you're not wrong. But yeah, that is 100% true. The Obama, but that I don't defend Obama either. I think he was a ghoul. So that's not it's not who I am. Yeah, December 2023, manufacturing.
Well, I'm glad to see that. I mean, it's a positive sign. It's a positive sign. I love to see that. Been missing for a long time.
It's not. I mean, it's a positive sign. We'll see, but yeah, I mean, it's like whatever. It just my point is that is that the unions are supposed to be socialist basically and militant.
True.
I mean, it's a leftist movement, which is why, like, one of the ways that our system got so castrated was because business interests have so much control over our government that they were able to look at the AFL, which was a very conservative union, and it it excluded blacks, it excluded women, and they were like, well, let's promote this one. This one's not very radical. They're not very militant. Samuel Gompers at the time didn't really believe much in strikes. This is the kind of union that we can stand behind and say, we like this kind of union. It's the same thing that, like, is it Amazon is trying to do, like, hey, we're creating our own union for you to join. And it's like, man, like, that is, if that's not a trap, I don't know what is. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I'm just, all right, let's see. Let's move on to something else. But like, I guess all I'm saying is that there's just the Vince McMahon thing he's gross. It's disgusting. Come on, you got to be on camera. It can't just be me.
It's gonna. My juice is running low.
Okay.
Running low.
Hold on, let me see what I got.
I can't believe we've rambled on about all this.
Nope,
all right.
Nope.
All right. We rambled on about all this nonsense. The only thing I'm going to say is we'll get back to football. Mike McDonald's going to Seattle. That sucks. Maybe we can hire Mike Vrabel to be our D coordinator. That would be nice. And I'm kind of starting to think maybe we should fire Monken, but I imagine they'll probably give him, because as a rookie in the NFL, they'll probably give him another year. But man, that was a backbreaker.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So let's see. Super Bowl. What you got?
So is it 2.5 points right now?
I don't even know. I didn't even look.
I think it's 2.5. Let me see. I'm taking Kansas City. I'm on the Swift train. I'm Swifty in it. I'm a Swifty train.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Swift stuff is funny. It's the NFL's dream scenario is if she can come back from Japan and be there for that game. I don't know what the spread is. It doesn't say on Yahoo, but I'm going to take San Francisco. The
last time I checked, it was 2.5.
Who's favorite?
San Francisco. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take
San
Francisco.
MGM.
I'll take San Francisco just because. Why not? Yeah. I mean, I think San Francisco is the better team, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Kansas City does just know how to win this time of year, and Mahomes. Honestly, Mahomes is making a case that he might be the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. I mean, he's been in the league 6 years. He's been in 6 AFC championship games. He's been in the league 6 years. He's going to his, 4th Super Bowl? Is that right?
I'm not sure.
I mean,
I thought the same it's the same argument for Brady. I don't buy that stuff. I mean, football, it's a lot about, it's a great coach. It's great. You got to have the whole team, running backs, got to have great receivers.
Sure, of course.
Everyone does their 2-point spread right now.
But you look at,
I don't know.
I mean, how do you argue that Brady, I mean, again, gets 6 Super Bowl rings?
Well, everyone said Montana was the great. Oh, Montana's the greatest. He had 4.
Well,
and
back
then I was like, no, he's not. No,
but
he's not. Now all of a sudden, I think Montana is better than Brady.
No, I disagree. But here's the biggest thing to put into to think about when you're talking about this. When the 49ers got all those Super Bowls, when the Steelers got all those Super Bowls, when the Cowboys got all those Super Bowls, there was no salary cap. And they spent, and they spent, and they spent. Brady, every one of Tom Brady's Super Bowls came during the salary cap era, which is why I think Belichick's probably is the greatest coach that's ever lived, because he did it all under the salary cap, where, the playing field is equalized. You can't buy a championship in the same way that you could before that.
I don't think you could ever buy a championship in the NFL.
Well, no. But you could keep building.
There was less parity for sure. But
yeah, that's what I mean. And you look at those teams.
There's no parity now.
Look at those 49ers teams in the late 80s, and you're just like, you look at the talent on those teams and you go, how could they afford all these guys? They never could today. No way you could afford Roger Craig and Montana and Jerry Rice and
all those defenders
and Ronnie Lott and and Charles Haley. And there's no way they could afford all of those guys. And the best offensive line in football, and a solid, this outstanding linebacker core. Like, you couldn't, but they could just keep building and never let guys go as long as they fit in. And the Cowboys did the same thing. I mean, I remember when the Cowboys got their first Super Bowl under Jimmy Johnson, when they went to the Super Bowl, I think that was the one against the Steelers with Neil O'Donnell. I remember thinking like the Cowboys have 5 offensive linemen that are all like 320 plus. And like nobody in the league is even close to that at the time. Nobody has and they're all like 320 plus, and they're all like running like 4.5 40s. So they got like the biggest, most athletic guys. And you think today, those 5 guys you couldn't keep together. Like you couldn't possibly keep them together. Johnson wins 2 Super Bowls, and then Barry Switzer wins one, all basically with the same team. Tweaks around the edges, but like you couldn't afford all those guys. Like you just couldn't afford all those guys with under the salary cap. But
no question.
You could.
No question.
You could then. And so yeah, I mean, no, you can't buy a championship. You still have to have the cohesion, and you have to have the talent. Having talent is one thing, but you have to make the talent work together.
Yeah, I think it takes a great GM, takes a great head coach, takes great defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator. The quarterback role, in my opinion, a lot of it has to do, to me, it's a statistic position, and it's an eye test position. I don't put as much weight as unfortunately most people do with Super Bowls and championships. I just don't.
Well,
I'll give you credit. He can't be a schmuck. I mean, I'm not saying Mahomes.
no, I disagree. I think you can get one. I mean, Trent Dilfer has one. Trent Dilfer has one.
But he also has the greatest
he was the definition of mediocrity. I mean, he was the definition of mediocrity.
Sure, that type of team can win with a mediocre
Brad Johnson got one with the Buccaneers, and he was even worse than Dilfer. You know, I mean, I think you can get one as a schmuck, as you say. But I don't think you get there year after year after year after year. And I'm sorry, Mahomes, this is the least talented team that he's ever had around him. And they're in the Super Bowl again. He just no matter how you slice it, what he's doing is the only thing that you can say equivalent is what Tom Brady did. I mean, when you look at Mahomes, he's been in the Super Bowl now 4 times, and who did he lose to? Tom Brady. You know what I mean? I can't remember. Did he lose the other? Is his third time?
Well, it's 6 straight, right? 6 straight AFC championships.
6 straight NFC championships. He lost to Burrow. He lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Well, couldn't have played Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, when Brady got his last one with the Buccaneers.
Oh, Tampa Bay. Okay.
So yeah, they lost to and then trying to think who let me look real quick. I want to see. So it comes out 2017. Let's see, hold on. Let's see. Sorry. He 2018. Excuse me. Oh, so yeah, he lost to Tom Brady. He lost to Tom Brady in the AFC Championship in 2018. Brady with the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And then his first season he lost in the wild card round. But he still, as a rookie, led his team to the playoffs, lost in the wild card round. Then he beat the 49ers in 2019. And then 2020 was 2020 lost to Brady and the Bucks. And then 2021 he lost to the Bengals, right? And then 2022 he won last year against the Eagles, and then we'll see what happens this year. So I was trying to remember if he won 2 or 3. He won 2. He won 2, he lost 1. And the only other players that have knocked him out, the only players that have knocked him out of the playoffs were, again, other than his rookie year, were Joe Burrow and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I still think too much credit. Of course, all the credit goes to them, and all the blame goes to them when they lose. Right? It's a high pressure position.
It's the hardest position in sports.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I mean not maybe. I mean it is. You have to process more than any other position in any other sport. It is.
No question. It's harder in that regard.
I mean, you have to have the mental acuity, the mental toughness, plus the physicality of it all. It is the hardest position in sports. I mean, there's as far as I'm concerned, there's not even a close second. There's just nothing quite like the quarterback position. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah, so I mean, I'll take the Niners. Just because I think they want revenge from the loss last time they faced them. And I think the Niners have been on a revenge mission since last year. But, a couple of close games against the Packers and against the Lions makes me a little nervous about that.
Yeah, they're not covering spreads, I guess.
Yeah, but
not covering the spreads. So, yep, I'm going with the Chiefs.
Well, I'm a
Chiefs fan.
All right. Well, look here. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this recording, but hang out for 1 second.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. For anybody that hung in for this this politics and unionization rant episode of USVN. We'll maybe see you at
And
some point.
crowning the champion of the pick'em.
Yep. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yes.
All right. See you later.